not give them all two? Why not give them all just one? Because the answer is right there in the verse, each to his own ability. The reason why that's important is because too many of us are looking at somebody else's talents and not focusing on our own. Too many of us are, why they get 5 and I only got 1. Maybe God could trust them with 5 and it could only trust you with 1. Why he got 2 and I only got 1.5. Maybe God understood that the person with the 2 will use those 2 to the best of his or her ability and not focus on what he or she doesn't have, but makes the most out of what they already got. The problem with some of us is we're always trying to measure up with somebody else. Comparison will always cause you to complain. Let's say that again. When you're always trying to compare, what that will lead to is you complaining. Why my house ain't as big as hers? Why my car ain't as nice as his? When you start comparing what you got to what somebody else got, you'll find yourself complaining. Well, how about you take care of what you got, and when you start taking care of what you already got, God might be able to bless you with something better. The reason why some of us don't get more is because we aren't taking care of what we already got. So we see here, 1 gets 5, 1 gets 2, 1 gets 1. 1 knows the word. 1 knows how to praise. 1 knows how to intercede in prayer. Why are you worried about trying to sing like somebody else when you know how to intercede? Won't you just focus on interceding and let them praise God like they know how to sing? One knows the word. But then 1 knows how to live out the word. See, I don't compare my folks to folks that quote chapter and verse. I'm more concerned about living out what God has given me instead of quoting chapter and verse, because anybody can quote chapter. Hell, the devil can quote chapter and verse. I need some folks that know how to live out what God is saying. So he gives 1 5. He gives 1 2 and he gives 1 1. Look at verse 16. He says, then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. Notice now, he was entrusted with 5 and he produced 5 more. 5 plus 5 equals 10. Help me out, my math ain't right now. Then you see the one that had 2, he gets 2 and he produces 2 more. 2 plus 2 is 4. So these are examples of good flips. They got something, and they took what they got and brought more back than what they had. Look at verse 17. And likewise, he who had received 2 gained 2 more. Here again, God gets a good return on his investment. The person that God can trust with some peace, God says, I give them peace because I know that when things get bad, they'll tap into what I've already given them. And they'll not only use the peace that I gave them, but they'll share that peace with somebody else. But look at verse 18, because verse 18 starts with a word that normally I get excited about. Typically, when I see the word but, I get excited because we know that but is a conjunction. It joins 2 conditions together, but whatever is said before that word but gets canceled out by what's said after the word but. The problem I got with what verse 18 is it's going to already let us know that what was said before it is about to get canceled out by what's said after it. Look at verse 18. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. Here's a clear example of what a flop looks like in God's kingdom. Notice what this servant does. He takes the 1 talent given to him and he does nothing with it. Not only does he do nothing with it, but he takes it and he hides it. He takes it and he buries it. How many of us are hiding what God has entrusted in us? God has given you the voice of an angel. But you're hiding what God has given you. You're burying what God has entrusted to you. God has given us, some of us, the ability to to manage and to be able to coordinate, and you won't raise your hand and say, here am I, send me. You're hiding what God has given you. You are valuable to the kingdom, but you won't let that value come out of you because you think what's best for you and not what's best for God. Many of us are hiding what God has blessed us with, and God says, I'm not getting a good return on my investment. Because when you're blessed by God, you're not blessed just to be blessed for you. You're blessed to be used by God. So the question is, are you a flip or are you a flop? Look at verse 19, because this is something we need to see. Verse 19 says, after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Well, we need to catch that now. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Y'all got to know, Jesus is coming back. And when he come back, he's coming back to settle some accounts. I'm going to come over here. When Jesus returns, he wants to see who he's getting a good return on his investment. When Jesus returns, he's looking for people that look like him. When he comes back, he's looking for people that act like him. When he comes back, he's looking for people that forgive like him. When he comes back, he's looking for people that show kindness like him. He's looking for humility like him. He's looking for understanding like him. He's looking for patience like him. But the question is, when he comes to settle his account with you, are you going to be bankrupt? Or is he going to see a plethora of his kindness and joy and love in your heart? The Word of God says, after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Many of us know the story, but in case you don't, the Lord goes to the one that had the 5, and he sees that he produced 5 more. You know what he says to him? Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few. Now I'm going to make you ruler over much. He then goes to the one that had the 2. And he saw that the one that had 2 came back with 2 more, now with 4. He says to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over little. Now I'm going to make you ruler over much. Whew. But then it gets a little heavy. Because if you go down to verse number 24, it says, then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man. He already off to a bad start. Reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. Look at what he's saying here. He says, then he who received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man. This is important. Please don't miss this. Here's the mentality of a flopper. Floppers always have excuses for why they don't produce. Floppers are always looking to lay the blame for why they didn't do what they were supposed to do or what was expected of them. Floppers are people that don't forgive when they've been forgiven. Floppers are people that don't give people a chance when they've been given multiple chances. Floppers are people that wash their hands of people when God hasn't washed his hands of you. Floppers are the kind of people that run out of patience with people, but yet you want God to have more patience with you. Floppers are the kind of people that don't seem to remember they were once unsaved, just like the folks they're dealing with, and yet now they act like they've always been holy in their life. Floppers are the kind of people that God says, I can't deal with. God says, I'm looking for some folks that understand, had it not been for the grace of God, I'd still be acting a fool out there in this world. But I appreciate what God has done for me, and now that he's done it for me, God, use me how you want to use me to reach some other folk, because I know what it was like to be in darkness, but now I'm glad I'm in the light. God says I don't need people making excuses. I need people willing to do what I need them to do so that I can get a good return on my investment. Look at verse 26. We're done. We're closing. Verse 26 says, but his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not gathered seed. Which begs the question, what is God going to say to us when we got to settle our accounts with him? Are you going to be a flip? Or are you going to be a flop? Are you going to give God a good return on his investment? Are you letting your light shine? Are you hiding your light to fit in with other people? Are you using the faith that you've been given? Are you not using that faith? There's something that the one that flopped said to his Lord. He said, I was afraid. You know, that's the excuse that many of us tell God. God, I would have tried it, but I was afraid I might fail. God didn't give you his faith for you to be worried about you failing. If you use the faith he gave you and put your trust in him, he has never failed. And some will say, well, I would have trusted and believed God, but I was afraid of what they might say. So you mean to tell me you're more concerned with what they got to say than what he said? If that's the case, then you're a flop. And God had, you know, when we were talking last night, me and God were talking, God said, I already know what some going to say. I said, what is that, God? He said, some of you going to come and say, you know, Pastor, I was a flip today. But yesterday I flopped. God said, prepare yourself, you're going to hear that. He said, but here's your response, here's your answer. Look, we all are going to fall short sometime. We all aren't going to make the mark. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We all fall short of God's perfection. Just by being human, you're going to fall short. But don't plan to fail. That's the key right there. Don't go into your day telling God, God, I'm not going to live up to what you need me to live up to today. No. Go into each and every day giving God your best, giving the best return on his investment in you, and let God determine whether or not you've done well or not. Too many of us, we plan to fail because we don't want to put the effort in. But God says, no, not anymore. God says, I'm looking to get a good return of what I put in you. So again, the question is, are you a flip or are you a flop? When you give an account for what you've done before God, will he say, well done, good and faithful servant? Flip this house. Let's give God some praise. Come on, let's give God some glory in this place. Hallelujah.